Good afternoon, and thank you very much all for coming to the last day of the Global Week. Today we're going to talk to Ali Reza Koohkan, an assistant professor in the Department of International Relations in the Alame Tabai University in Iran. His teaching courses include Iran's and US foreign policy, globalization, and policy of big powers. Today, he will talk about new crises in the Middle East. Thank you very much for being here.
Whenever you want, I can start. Okay. Sorry. No problem. In the name of God, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As she said, I am Ali Reza Koohkan, Assistant Professor of International Relations from Allame Tabatabai University, Faculty of Law and Political Science, Tehran, Iran. I'm very glad today to be here with you, and I hope we join next hour together. I want to talk about crisis in Middle East. I plan to have two-part presentation, but I have decided to talk only just about the second part because I talked about the first part in two classes here. So I will have a short presentation here today, I hope. In my presentation, I would like to talk about crisis in Middle East. As you know, unfortunately, Middle East has faced a lot of crises during recent years, and in this presentation, I want to talk about two groups of this crisis and just the political crisis, because Middle East has a lot of and different crises on a lot of subjects. The first one is old and ongoing crisis, and the second one is recent crisis, especially during this year, not last year. I start with the old and in some viewpoint the most important crisis in Middle East, Palestinian-Israeli conflict. As you know, this is a really big conflict in Middle East, so I do not like to talk a lot about it, but I will address just some few points about it. This is the oldest crisis in Middle East since 1917 and after Balfour Declaration. Balfour at that time was the Foreign Minister of Great Britain, that at that declaration he declared that will support establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. This crisis was started from that time. At that time, there were about 80,000 Jewish people in Palestine and near 600,000 Muslims in Palestine. And now, at this time, we have near 5 million Jewish people in Palestine and 1.3 million Muslims in Palestine. This conflict coming on, and after in 1947, United Nations General Assembly decided to have two-state solution. At that time, Israeli government established, but Palestinian government did not establish and has not established until now. From 1947, Arab countries tried to solve this problem with war. So we have a lot of war in the region, but they were frequently defeated at all wars because Israel has a very powerful army, and Israeli army, by help of Western countries, easily defeated them. After Iranian Revolution in 1979, the ideology of fight for Palestinian rights has been changed. The ideology changed from nationalism to a religious fight against injustice. Some believe that this change is the biggest initiative of Iran in Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And since that time, we have a new entity in this conflict that is called axis of resistance. This axis of resistance, including Iran, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and now Iraq and Yemen. The first war in Middle East, which Israel army could not win in, that is 2006 war that Israel attacked Lebanon. Some believe that after that war, axis of resistance became popular in Middle East opinion, especially for common people. This is the map of Palestine during these years, from 1946 until now. The green was Palestinian area, and the white was Israeli area during these years. And at this time, during Trump administration, during Trump presidency, the relation between United States and Israel has been changed from a relation which is based on a strong Zionist lobbies in United States to a personal relation, because some in Trump's family, especially his son-in-law Jared Kushner, had obvious tendency toward Israel. So under their influence, Trump moved U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and did a lot of other political action in favor of Israel. And this development is very important because personal relation and manage of personal relation in international relation is completely different from relation based on parties or lobbies or interest groups or something like this. And the last one on this crisis is deal of century. Deal of century is the Trump's plan for solving this problem or for this Palestinian-Israeli conflict. This deal has two important opponents. First, Palestinians. Second, Iran. So I guess the result and the consequence of this deal from the beginning is obvious, and there's no need to talk about it. The second crisis in the Middle East is Arab Spring, or some events that is called Arab Springs. Arab countries in Middle East and North Africa also have a durable circle of dictatorship, corruption, injustice, and poverty, and something like this, especially for common people in this region. From 2011, we saw some movement in the region. In 2011, a movement began from Tunis or Tunisia and spill over to other Arab countries in the region, such as Egypt, Syria, Bahrain, Yemen, and Libya. And new waves of this movement went to Sudan. Here you can see the picture of ex-president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir. He came to power after a coup, like other rulers in the region. And also Algeria. This movement and request for modern democratic state caused instability and chaos in the region. We have civil war in Libya, in Syria, and in the securitization of the region in Egypt, in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, in Yemen, and other countries in the region. People of region want change, but they don't know how and in which model they follow what they want or they request. They want democracy, Islamic values, better economic situation, but they don't know how they can access to these requests. Next crisis in the Middle East is terrorism. Unfortunately, for a long time, Middle East has faced strong terrorist groups such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And in Iran also, after Islamic Revolution, we have more than 16,000 innocent people that which were killed by terrorist organization, among of them ex-President Rajai and ex-Prime Minister Bahonar. In recent years, ISIS was the most famous and important terrorist organization in the Middle East. And this organization is still alive in a small region in border of Syria and Iraq, and a real danger to Middle East stability and security. We have also Al-Qaeda. In the Arabian Peninsula, and especially in Yemen. They fight against Houthis in Yemen, and because of the rule of enemy of my enemy is my friend, we use this rule frequently in Middle East, unfortunately. Enemy of enemy is my friend. Saudi coalition helped them there, so they become strong, and it's bad for the region. Both ISIS and Al-Qaeda was created by Saudi civilians. They have Saudi ideologies, Wahhabis. Both of them at the beginning were in favor of US interests in the Middle East. Al-Qaeda was created to fight Soviets in Afghanistan. But after that, the direction of their action changed. This is the logic of terrorist organizations. You may create them, but you cannot control them for a long time. These facts complicate fighting against terrorism in Middle East. Other crisis is territorial conflict. Current map of Middle East has been drawn after World War I and collapse of Ottoman Empire. Great Britain drew this map in 1919, 100 years ago. But there are a lot of conflict between countries in the region about these borders. These conflicts sometimes create war, like Iraq's attack on Iran during Saddam Hussein's era, or Saudi-Qatar war. And because of these conflicts, Middle East countries cannot able to establish a regional security system. So international powers can intervene in the region. Yesterday, we have Turkey's attack to north of Syria. This is another example from this type of conflict, because Turkey believes this border is not a real border. They have a problem with Kurdish at that region, so they attack Syria. Maybe if Syria has power, or in the future will have power, Syria attack Turkey or Iraq. So this type of conflict is durable, and we may have some example of it. And the last one in this part is Yemeni War. As you know, Yemeni War is an ongoing conflict that began since 2015 by Saudi Arabia and UAE invading Yemen. They, means Saudi coalition, claim that they support Mansur Hadi government against Ansarullah movement, Hadi was ex-president of Yemen, is now living in Saudi Arabia. This war causes a very big humanitarian crisis and the biggest and worst in 21st century. 24 million people in Yemen need urgent humanitarian aid, and unfortunately international community has not done anything for them. It's really shameful for Middle East and also for international community. The second part of my presentation is about recent crisis and especially crisis in 2019 in Middle East. As you know, we have a new wave of crisis in Middle East in this year. I want to talk about two of them. Crisis in the Strait of Hormuz and attack to Aramco oil facility. This is the Strait of Hormuz, a way between Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. At the south of Iran, north of Saudi Arabia and UAE, United Arab Emirates. In 2019 and after new imposed sanction against Iran by United States and especially oil sanction, we saw some important incident in the Strait of Hormuz. I will address three of them. First, and most important of them, in June 2019, two oil tankers, one for Japan and one for Norway, were attacked near the Strait of Hormuz. And also before that, in May, three oil tankers were attacked in UAE territory near the Strait of Hormuz. Both incidents, in both of them, US officials accused Iran, but Iranian officials denied them. Especially one of them was occurred when Iranian top officials were negotiating with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Iran claimed that the time of attack obviously showed that Iran was not responsible for it. And the second war is shooting a US drone. The second incident was shooting down of a US drone in Strait of Hormuz on June again. On June, IRGC or Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, one of Iranian military parts and branches, shot down a very high-tech drone of US near the Strait of Hormuz. Iran claimed that the drone entered Iran's territory, but US denied. Drone leftover was found in Iran's territory. For 48 hours, everyone expected for a full-scale war between United States and Iran. This is the map of the incident. Iran said drone was in its territory, but US said it was on international water. Both points are really near to each other. After that, Trump declared that he was refused from retaliate. This incident showed two important points. The first is the threat of war is real, really, and also Iran has a high-tech military ability, so attack on Iran is not so easy. And if United States wants to attack Iran, Trump should be prepared for its consequences. And the third one was seizing oil tankers by UK and Iran. In July, in next month after June, UK detained Iranian oil tanker in Gibraltar or in Jabal Tariq. Later, UK claimed it was heading for Syria. Iran declared this action is against international law. After this seizure and after failure of Iranian diplomatic attempts to release the tanker, Iran detained British oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz and retaliate. This incident again raised threat of war. UK sent their troops to the Persian Gulf and tried to attack Iran. Iran says another British tanker. After 3 weeks of crisis between two countries and creating two coalitions against Iran and for Iran, UK released Iranian tanker, and after that Iran released British ships. Unfortunately, every day and each day we expect some this type of crisis in the region. And as you know, this type of crisis easily can have a very big consequences. And we may have a big and full escalation of war in the region. And this is the picture for seizure of tankers. And the next one is attack to Aramco oil facility. On September, the largest oil processing facility in the world was attacked by drones. 10 drones and some missiles in Saudi Arabia, in the north of Saudi Arabia. Houthi forces declared their responsibility over this attack as a retaliate to Saudi attack on Yemen. But Saudis and also US officials accused Iran. Again, Iran denied. For each incident accused Iran, Iran denied. It's not important in political literature, but in real politics, it's important because it can lead to a political action or a military action or something like this. This attack damaged Saudi oil facilities and stopped half of their oil producing. And international oil market shocked after that. Oil price raised near 10%, and it's important for the region and also for all over the world. This is a picture of the oil facility in Saudi Arabia that was damaged and attacked by drones. And today, we have an attack to an Iranian oil tanker in Red Sea. An Iranian oil tanker, name of it is Sabiti, has been damaged near the Saudi port city of Jeddah in the middle of Red Sea. Iranian media claimed it was a rocket attack by 2 missiles. This tanker is attacked. It caused an oil leak into the Red Sea, and the leak was brought under control, as Iranian media claim. This is Iran, Saudi Arabia, and this is Jeddah and Red Sea. As I said, previous tension is in the Strait of Hormuz, but this new tension is near Jeddah. And here is Yemen, and Ansarullah territory is here. So if Saudi Arabia or Israel is responsible for this attack, it will cause to another tension or another conflict in the region, because Saudis or Israeli ships should cross this region, is under control of Ansarullah. Ansarullah is a proxy of Iran at that place. So if they, Saudis or Israelis here, attack Iranian oil tanker, Iran will retaliate, and it may cause to a big war at that region. This is the picture of Sabiti after attack, and you can see it. Now, we want to address 2 questions. Why these new crises are happening? And what are the reasons? I don't want to talk about the responsibility or something like this. Maybe Iran responsible for some of them or may not, but we should answer why these incidents are occurred and which reasons caused them. Some believe new U.S. policies toward Iran are the main causes of this crisis. And if it is true, if U.S. left Iran alone, would all the crisis in the Middle East be over? It's true that one of the main reasons over this current crisis in Middle East is U.S. new policy in the Middle East against Iran. But if U.S. left Iran alone, crisis in Middle East is not finished, because there are a lot of causes and a lot of another reasons behind them. The second question is about the future of the Middle East. We can think about the future of Middle East and predict some scenarios or something like this. but we should understand what is the present situation in Middle East. At this time, we have three big power in Middle East and three potential power to be a regional power: Iran, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia. They are and a big competition between these powers to be a regional power, and after that, the dominant power of the region. Also, foreign powers want to enter the region. At this time, the dominant power in the region is United States, but everyone knows that the United States did not have its previous power and domination in the region, so they want to intervene the region. Some powers like France, like UK, like Russia, and also China want to enter the region and intervene the region's policies and relations. 100 years after 1919, Middle East become ready for a new border map and for a new political map. Future of this region may be under this drawing of map. And the last thing that I want to talk about it, Iran's viewpoint on about this crisis and what's happened in the region. Iran's official talk about common benefit and cooperation in the region. They say their policy in the region under a simple rule: either everyone benefits or no one does. And also we should mention that Iran's suggestion for all regional conflict in diplomatic attempts. Iran's primary resolution plan for Palestinian-Israeli conflict, Syrian conflict, Yemeni conflict, and Bahrain conflict is election. But unfortunately, this resolution is not accepted by big powers. And they, and also after them, Iran tries to solve the problem in the region by using force. And by using force, you may have a short answer, but it's not suitable, and it's not create stability in the region for a long time. This is my presentation about crisis in Middle East. If you have any question, we'll be happy to hear from you, or any comments or something like this. In which conflict you mean?
What do you mean by election?
For example, Iranian plan for Syrian crisis. As you know, we have a civil war in Syria from 2012 until now. Iranian plan is that we should hold election there. People of Syria decide who and how rule them. They may decide and elect Bashar al-Assad. They may decide and elect his opponents. It's related to them, not to regional power or international power to interfere Syria. But no one accepts Iran's plan, so they fight each other, they kill each other, and as you know, the conflict is going on. Yeah?
Hosting elections in these countries, for example, in this Syria, wouldn't be so difficult since there is a huge diaspora in Syria, and since there is a lack of power, how would these elections be held in Syria without international help or without a transitioning government, since they have a failed state at the moment?
Iran's plan has 3 steps. First, ceasefire. Second, transitional state. And writing or creating new constitutional law. And then holding election by support and help of international community, because each election that will be held by Syrian government or his opponent or United States or Iran will not be accepted by others. So it should be under the control of maybe United Nations and all part of this conflict. Yeah?
Do you think that there's a possibility that other Middle Eastern states will allow the creation of a Kurdish state north of Syria?
In real politics, and if I want to be honest with you, no. Because and this is also Iranian viewpoint about this crisis. Any change to the border of the region in any country is the beginning of a chain of chains and create new circle of damage, circle of instability and insecurity in the region. So, for example, in Iraq and in Syria, Iran supports Kurdish and Kurds' right to have its own interests, but does not support independent Kurdish state. Yeah?
I have no words, but when counting the Palestinian and Israeli population,
Mm-hmm.
we count the people who are Palestinian but have Israeli nationality? Because most of them do.
We have Arab Israeli as a civilian of Israel state. Yeah, they are contributing and voting in Israeli elections. They are different from who is living in Palestinian territory. On the map, Arabs or Muslim living here in the white map is civilian of Israel, and in the green map is not under Israeli control, but the population of Arab in green place is more than in white. The first, the second, we have a lot of Arab refugee in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, and all over the world from Palestinians.
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of people don't realize when people talk about the amount of Palestinian people living in Palestine or Israel, they don't realize that a huge amount of Palestinian
I don't have here. The amount of what I said, the amount of Arabs in Israeli areas at this time is 1.3 million. It's not related to Palestinian refugees or Palestinians live in the green space. It's just about Palestinian or Arabs in Israeli territory. Yeah. You?
Yeah, okay. I actually have a question about the recent attacks of Turkey to the
North of Syria.
yeah, to the recent Turkish bombings in Syria, but they're actually bombing the Kurdish part of Syria, and therefore, like they're like making it increase the Kurdish diaspora around it. And what we've been seeing is that Kurdish are not fleeing to other Kurdish parts of, for example, they're not fleeing to the Kurdish side of Turkey. They're going more towards Iraq, other than Iran. And why is that? Why the Kurdish always goes like more towards Iraq than Iran, and why this conflict between like why is this conflict between the Kurds and Turkey? Turkish are more they're more how can I say the Turkish are now very well accepted in the Kurdish are now very well accepted in Turkey.
At the beginning, it's a problem in history. At the beginning of establishing new Turkish government after Ottoman Empire, this new state is called Turkey. Turkey means land of Turks. At that time, someone asked Ataturk, who established New Turkey, that in land of Turks we have other ethnics, something like that. They say, no, we do not have anything except Turks. They asked, we have some ethnic, and the most important of them was and were the Kurds, because they have a lot of population at Turkey. He said, no, we do not have any Kurds in Turkey. When you deny a reality in politics, you cannot solve the problem. And since that thought that we do not have Kurds in Turkey and deny the existence of Kurds in Turkey, the conflicts began and continue. And attacking Syria, Kurdish in Syria or North Iraq is not the answer for this conflict and cannot solve it. In Iran, we do not and did not deny Kurds. Kurdish people in Iran claim that the real Iranian people are Kurds, because the first Iranian big state or big empire was created by Kurds. So in Iran, they want to be one part of Iranian communities. But in Turkey, it's not so. In Iraq, we have two parts in community, unfortunately, Arabs and Kurds. In Syria, we have three parts, Alawis, Sunnis, Kurds. When you divide the community in different parts with significant border between them, you cannot have a powerful and development community. So the conflict between Turkey and Kurds, I think, will continue. Yeah?
How do you claim, as you said, like there is no Kurdish people in Turkey? How do you claim that?
Me? I do not claim that. As I said, Ataturk, who established the new Turkey government, claimed that at that time in 1919 there is not any except Turks in Turkey, and this is wrong, and this is the real cause of Kurdish conflict in Turkey and in the region.
There was another nationalist at that time,
Yeah?
and Atatürk is always tolerant for every nationality. He didn't even say.
He denied all other ethnics except Turks in Turkey.
Because I'm from Turkey and he
Yeah.
didn't deny anyone. He has been always tolerant to other nationalities.
Yeah. And about Kurdish people?
Yeah, he was.
He called Kurdish people as Turks that lived in mountain and used to live in mountain. So a type or a branch of Turkish people that used to live in mountain named Kurds. When you deny the origin or roots of an ethnic group, you cannot communicate with them very well. And some believe this is the real and main cause of Kurdish problem in the region. But this conflict cannot solve by using of force, not by government, not by Kurdish groups, because as you know, we have a lot of terrorist attacks by Kurdish groups in Turkey, in Iraq, and at previous time in Syria. Using force cannot solve ethnic problems. Okay? Yeah?
I have another question. Is that
A question or comment?
well, it's a question actually.
Uh-huh.
Because usually when we see this region, we see there are two enemies and like two huge powers. When we say that we have Iran in one side and the Saudis and Saudi Arabia the other side,
Uh-huh.
and they usually use these forces and powers to support other parties, to support in mainly proxy conflicts of that. And how can Iran propose this plan? For example, the plan that you mentioned before of the elections, if it keeps supporting the wars against the Saudis around this region.
In which place?
Well,
Or in which conflict?
well, many of the conflicts on this area, but there is a list that I can try to access.
Mm-hmm.
But an example, you have Iran. Sorry, just because I'm lacking an example right now.
Iran, like, until you find the crisis, I want to say a short sentence. Iran, like any other country, try to achieve Iran's interest or Iran's national interest. It's obvious. But Iranian officials think that they can access their interest through Yeah.
By proxy wars, I don't mean that Iran's taking part in it. I'm just saying that Iran's supporting groups and using proxies by it. So, for example, Iran supports Hezbollah and used to support Iraq and supports Liwa Fatemiyun. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia supports KDPI and as well as National Resistance and all of these groups. I'm not saying that that Iran's actually fighting, but I'm saying that Iran supporting groups that are fighting.
In Fatimiyun, Hezbollah, or ISIS and Al Qaeda that you named is fighting in Syria. Yeah.
I didn't mention Al Qaeda nor ISIS.
Uh-huh.
I mentioned Hezbollah.
Fatimiyun.
No, Hezbollah and Liwa Fatemiyun.
Liwa, I don't know what it means. Fatimiyun, I know them. Fatimiyun is a Afghan group that fight in Syria. But Liwa, I don't know what it means.
It's actually the same.
Oh, I guess you means Leva. Leva is an Arabic word, I guess, means group. Yeah. Lewa, yeah. It's an Arabic word.
That's what I mean by proxy war. I'm not saying that Iran's like fighting directly, but it's supporting groups that are maintaining this war in Syria.
Mm-hmm.
And how could it like propose this and say, oh, let's find a stability and
I guess it is obvious. In politics, you cannot wait until they accept your first suggestion. When they do not accept your first suggestion, you should have the second plan. When they do not accept to negotiate, you use power to achieve your interest. In politics, it is obvious, yeah. But war in the region is not in favor of Iranian interests, Saudi interests, Turkey interests, or Iraq, Syria, and something like this. Unfortunately, Arab really rich countries in the region spend a lot of money for missiles, for warheads, for fighting airplanes or something like this. Saudi Arabia last year spent $87 billion for military budget, and if this country spend this money for their people, we have a really better situation in the region. So war is not in favor of anyone.
What do you think Iran could do to have a better voice around international politics?
It's a real important question, but I don't know what is the answer of it. Because, for example, Iranians try to solve their problem in Iran's nuclear activity by a deal named JCPOA, or Iran's nuclear deal. But this deal could not solve Iranian nuclear activity problem, and the United States sanction come back again, or return on Iran again. Yeah? Any other question? I can imagine or I can have hope to have peace in Middle East, but in near future, I guess it is not achievable or accessible, unfortunately, because some politicians in Middle East believe that they can solve their problem with use of force, directly or indirectly. And until they will not change their mind about using force, we cannot access to peace or have peace in Middle East, unfortunately. Or their mind should change or should be changed, or they should change or should be changed. And without one of these two solutions, we cannot access to peace in Middle East.
I guess I have a question. When you talk about after 100 years the Middle East is ready for a new map, specifically, like what do you mean by that? How do you really design this new map? What would it look like really? And what issues are to be taken into account? And is the Middle East really prepared for it? Like, I don't know if, when you talk about changes, geographical changes and geopolitical changes in the region, you say that there's the fear to instability. So I'm not sure that we can state that after 100 years the Middle East is prepared for a change of map and look at it from a positive perspective, because we don't know the implications that might have. Like, what do you think it would mean for the Middle East to change the map?
For example, if you travel to Iraq and ask a man or a woman in the street that, who are you? The answer of this question, as you know, in politics, means the identity. Who are you? They, he or she, in Iraq I mean, he or she will answer you, I am Sunni, I am Shia, I am means Arab Sunni, Arab Shia, or I am Kurd. He or she do not answer you, I am Iraqi. It means Iraq is ready for change. And if the international situation, and especially Turkey and Iran efforts and political positions, there is not these political positions, Iraq will divide it to 2 or 3 countries easily. We have this situation in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Turkey, in Syria, in Lebanon, a very small country, in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, in Yemen. So Middle East is really ready for change. And it's not good because won't have a good consequences for the region.
Okay, but then who will be at the center of drafting this new map? Like, if this happened, who will be the one taking responsibility for the boundaries of the region? Whoever takes responsibility.
Yeah. In politics, the answer is completely obvious. Who is responsible? Who will draw the new map? The answer is obvious. Who? Who has power? Who can draw the new map? So, because of that, as I mentioned, potential regional power in the region try to become regional power, and after that dominant power of the region, so the dominant power of the region can draw new map. Maybe Saudi Arabia, maybe Turkey, maybe others.
Yeah, but then we're back at square one, because the issue is it's other states within the region trying to advance their interests when redesigning the map.
What?
If you have a single Asian at
Uh-huh.
the center of designing the map,
Mhm.
it's always going, the map is always going to look accordingly to the interests of that Asian.
Mhm.
So, to say that just because there are regional powers that can do it, the Middle East is prepared for change, does not mean that change is either going to be does not mean that it's positive,
Mhm.
or that it's going to be representative of the civil society of the Middle East. So I don't know, like, if it is really truthful that after 100 years the Middle East is ready.
My viewpoint is different from yeah.
In the meantime, this map has
The map.
been designed and redesigned a lot for the last years. And you were telling us about the Iranian plan vis-a-vis the Syrian conflict. Could you please summarize the Iranian plan vis-a-vis the Israeli-Palestine conflict?
For Israeli-Palestine conflict, Iran's official declared 15 years ago, I guess, the map for this conflict. They said that we should have a free election in all of this territory. All people that used to live this territory, who live now and who are refugee in other countries, should vote for the future of this land. If they vote for two-state solution, we should have two-state. If they vote for a big Israel, in all of this map, we should have Israel. If they vote for a Palestine state, we should have Palestine. The problem in Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not only the resistance groups or conflict between Israel and Palestine, the green and white part of the map. The biggest problem exists inside of Israel. Future studies about the future of Israel say us that maybe after 20 years, the balance of population between Arabs and Jewish inside Israel will be changed. And after that, without any conflict, there will be not a Jewish state in Israel, because most of population with Israeli passport, not with Palestinian passport. I don't know Palestinian has passport or not, but with Israeli passport will be Arabs, not Jewish people. So the real conflict, the real problem for Israel is inside Israel, not the problem around its border. And the plan of Iran I understand why Israel or United States do not accept it, because if you have a real free election from Palestinian, that what do you want in Israel, the answer is obvious. So we do not have election. I don't know why they do not accept it. As I know why they do not accept it in Syria, because if you have a free election by United Nations or any other actor, that Syrian people want security and stability, or ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Al-Nusra or something like this, the answer is obvious also. So they do not accept it. I understand in political thought that why they do not accept Iranian plan. Yeah?
With the world being everything, it's another question, like going all the way around this. With the world being every day more and more Islamophobic, and the new rise of right-wing populism in Israel,
Mm-hmm.
what are your perspectives as someone who studies this area for this region in the future? For example, the leadership of Netanyahu, who won again, and the new Islamophobic measures that are being implemented here on the Occidental part of the world.
First, you should think about who create Islamophobia. We had a big wave of Islamophobia after 9/11 attack in United States, yeah? Who is responsible? Who was responsible for that attack? Al-Qaeda. Who created Al-Qaeda? United States. If you read the book of Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State at Obama administration, first Obama administration, she wrote at that book that United States create ISIS. Who create Islamophobia at recent years? ISIS, by beheading people, innocent people, childs, females, males, not military civilians, and record high quality films and share it in social networks. So I think there is a relation between this Islamophobia and political witness of one or some groups. In the region, in Middle East, we have a willingness for Islam and against United States or Western countries, and I think it's not good for the region. If you have a free election in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, that you want to have a relation with United States or not, most of people will, I guess, will vote no, we do not want to have a good relation with United States, with UK, with European Union or something like this. And it's not good for the future of the region. But who is responsible for this strong emotion against Western countries? Again, I guess the answer is obvious. We cannot go to an incident and try to solve the problem without facing with the causes and something that behind of this incident, like what we have today in Red Sea for Iranian tanker. Who will be responsible for this attack? We have some candidates for this attack. Maybe Saudi Arabia, maybe Israel, maybe United States, maybe UK. There is some candidate. But the cause of this attack also is important. When you have some problem in the Strait of Hormuz, you should prepare for some problem in other place or other region in the world. Russian Foreign Minister said a good thing about this problem, the previous problem also. He said he talked to UK officials, said them, if you want to do not have a problem with your ships, take Iranian ships alone. Do not intervene in Iranian problem with the United States. If you want to be one part of this plan, you will have a lot of problem. Okay, the last one. As I said, the region is ready for changing map. And as I mentioned, I think any change to with political situation, not cultural map or civilization or something like this. Political border and political map, I mean, not anything else. And as I mentioned, any change to political map of the region will cause another circle of instability and the securitization of the region. I want to finish it if you agree with me. Thanks a lot to be with me in this presentation. I hope it's be useful for you, and your comments and questions will be very useful for me also. Thanks a lot and have a good weekend. Bye.